We asked Grok what the newest AI research has actually found about whale communication. Expecting either an oversimplified answer or a wildly speculative one, the two directions this topic usually gets pulled in online. What we got instead was a clear, careful walkthrough of one of the most ambitious interspecies communication projects currently running anywhere in science. A project that hasn't translated a single whale sentence into English, and is refreshingly honest about that fact, but has, over the past 2 years, found something that genuinely surprised the researchers involved. Structure. Real, measurable language-like structure, buried inside a sound that scientists had spent 60 years treating as barely more sophisticated than Morse code. The project at the center of this story is called Project CETI, short for the Cetacean Translation Initiative, founded in 2020 by marine biologist and National Geographic explorer David Gruber. It's a nonprofit research collaboration, and what makes it unusual even by the standards of ambitious science projects is just how many completely different fields it pulls together in one place. The team includes marine biologists, roboticists, cryptographers, linguists, natural language processing engineers, and underwater acousticians, all working toward the same goal, understanding what sperm whales are actually saying to each other. The choice of sperm whales, specifically, isn't random. These are animals that live in tight matrilineal family units, communicate constantly within those units using patterns of rapid clicking sounds called codas, and have been studied in extraordinary depth off the coast of Dominica for nearly 3 decades by researchers, including Shane Jarrow, one of the world's foremost sperm whale behavioral experts and a core member of the CETI team. That decades-long foundation of behavioralness data, knowing which whale is related to which family group is which, and how they behave socially over time, is exactly the kind of context an AI system needs in order to eventually connect specific sounds to specific meanings, rather than just finding patterns in noise with no way to know what those patterns actually correspond to. For most of the history of whale research, sperm whale codas were treated as a relatively simple signal. Researchers going back to the 1960s documented these clicks mostly in terms of their timing and quantity, essentially cataloging rhythm and repetition the way you might describe a drum beat, without much expectation that the sequences carried anything like the layered, combinable structure of an actual language. Project CETI's research over the past 2 years has directly challenged that assumption. In 2024, the team published a study in the journal Nature Communications describing what they called a sperm whale phonetic alphabet, borrowing terminology from music theory and linguistics to classify the recurring building blocks that make up a coda. What they found was that whales don't just repeat a fixed set of click patterns unchanged. They combine smaller units into longer phrases, and they appear to vary those combinations depending on social context, meaning the same underlying building blocks seem to get rearranged differently depending on who's listening and what situation the whales are in. That's a meaningfully different picture from Morse code, where a signal always means exactly one fixed thing no matter the context. It starts to look, at least structurally, more like the combinatorial building block system that human language itself is built on, small units recombined in different orders to produce different meanings, even though nobody on the CETI team is yet claiming to know what any specific combination actually means to the whales producing it. The finding that pushed this story further, and the one that generated the most genuine excitement inside the research community, came in November 2025 from a collaboration between Project CETI and UC Berkeley's linguistics department, led by Berkeley linguistics professor Gasper Begusch, who serves as the linguistics lead for CETI. Analyzing thousands of recorded whale vocalizations, the team identified what they describe as vowel-like sounds embedded within sperm whale codas, acoustic properties with spectral characteristics, meaning the specific mix of frequencies present in the sound that closely resemble the vowels found in human speech. Begusch described the shift in framing directly, explaining that researchers had long thought of whale communication as something closer to Morse code, but that this new analysis shows their calls behave more like very slow vowels, carrying a level of complexity that starts to approach features of human language. What makes this finding particularly striking to linguists is that these vowel-like sounds varied in length, timing, frequency, and trajectory, the same characteristics that carry actual meaning in human vowel systems, where the difference between a short vowel and a long one, or a rising pitch versus a falling one, can completely change the meaning of a word. Begusch put it plainly, saying the spectral properties they found were similar enough to human vowels that researchers could describe them using human letters, and noting that even the way the sounds appear to be physically produced mirrors patterns found in the human vocal tract. None of this proves sperm whales have language in the full human sense, but it's a genuinely unexpected degree of structural similarity, found using tools sensitive enough to catch acoustic detail that had simply been invisible to 60 years of prior listening. Getting to this point required real engineering, not just clever software, and this is where AI and hardware innovation actually intersect in this story. Recording a sperm whale's vocalizations in enough detail to analyze micro-level acoustic structure, while it's diving hundreds or thousands of meters underwater, isn't something existing. Equipment was built to do well. Researchers at Harvard's John A. Paulson School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, working directly with the CETI team, engineered a new kind of non-invasive biologger specifically for this project. A recording device that attaches to a whale using soft suction cups inspired by the way clingfish grip onto surfaces underwater, designed to be gentle enough not to disturb the animal's natural behavior. According to Daniel Vogt, the lead Harvard engineer on the project, the team looked at everything already available on the market and found nothing that matched what the science actually required, so they built their own device from scratch. The resulting biologger uses 3 synchronized underwater microphones to capture sound not just from the tagged whale, but from other whales at varying distances at the same time, while simultaneously recording GPS position, depth, temperature, light levels, and movement data. That combination matters enormously because it means every recorded click pattern comes bundled with the exact physical and behavioral context surrounding it, which is precisely the kind of paired data an AI model needs in order to eventually start connecting specific sound patterns to specific real-world circumstances, rather than just sorting sounds by acoustic similarity with no idea what any of them are actually about. Alongside the underwater recording work, the CETI team has also built tools to study whale behavior from above the surface, using modified racing drones equipped with high-resolution cameras to observe how whale families move, surface, and interact as groups, feeding that footage into a custom-built computer vision and network analysis software package the team calls Whale Tales. The goal is to eventually merge this above-water behavioral picture with the underwater acoustic data, so that researchers aren't just analyzing sound in isolation, but connecting it to the full physical and social context of what the whales were actually doing at the moment they made a particular sequence of clicks. It's worth being very clear about where the actual scientific process goes from here, because this is exactly the kind of research where responsible framing matters more than an exciting headline. Finding structure in a signal, phonetic building blocks that recombine, vowel-like acoustic properties that vary meaningfully is a real and significant scientific result. It is not the same thing as knowing what any of it means. Project CETI's own published research roadmap is explicit about this next stage, which involves carefully designed playback experiments, meaning researchers eventually place specific recorded coda sequences back to whales in controlled conditions and observe how they respond, to test whether AI-identified patterns actually correspond to consistent, predictable behavioral reactions. That's the scientific gold standard for claiming you understand what a signal means in any animal communication system. Not that a pattern looks structurally interesting to a machine learning model, but that the same pattern reliably produces the same kind of response when tested directly with the actual animals. As of now, that validation work is still ongoing, and neither CETI's own materials nor the peer-reviewed papers behind these findings claim to have translated any specific whale coda into a specific meaning yet. There's also a broader project happening alongside the purely scientific side of this research that's worth understanding, because it says something about how seriously this work is being taken outside the lab as well. Project CETI has partnered with New York University School of Law's More Than Human Life program, known as MOTH, to specifically examine the legal and ethical implications of AI-assisted animal communication research, exploring what it might mean, legally and ethically, if sperm whale communication turns out to genuinely meet scientific standards for something resembling structured language. Begouche himself has pointed directly at this question, noting that if sperm whales do have the capacity for something language-like, it raises serious legal and ethical considerations about how humans are obligated to treat them, considerations that go well beyond simple scientific curiosity about what a click pattern technically consists of. This kind of forward-looking, cross-disciplinary caution, asking not just what can we learn, but what do we owe these animals if we're right about what we're finding, is exactly the sort of thing that gets skipped entirely in a headline built around a fake, shocking AI revelation, and it's arguably the most consequential part of the whole story. Taken together, what the real research shows is not a translated whale message and never claimed to be one. It's a genuinely surprising discovery that an animal communication system researchers had underestimated for 60 years turns out to have real internal structure, recombination, contextual variation, and acoustic, properties eerily similar in specific, measurable ways to features that carry meaning in human language, uncovered specifically because AI pattern recognition tools, paired with purpose-built recording hardware and decades of patient behavioral fieldwork, were finally capable of catching acoustic detail that plain human listening never could. The next real milestone in this story isn't a single dramatic message. It's going to be a slow, methodical series of playback experiments run over years, testing whether specific patterns really do produce consistent, predictable responses from the whales themselves. That's a less cinematic story than AI decodes whale language implies. But it's the honest one, and if the current trajectory of this research holds, it's also the one far more likely to end with scientists actually being able to say, with real confidence, what a sperm whale is telling another sperm whale, rather than just how interesting the pattern looks when a machine sorts it.